Good evening. He called himself the Angel of Mercy, but tonight Andrew Dawson is starting a life sentence for murdering two neighbours.
Dawson stabbed John Matthews and Paul Hancock at least 40 times in their homes before trying to cover up his crimes. He did it while out of prison on licence, as he was already a convicted murderer.
Well, his trial got underway at Nottingham Crown Court this morning, but was over within just a few hours. Our correspondent Phil Brewster was there and can join us now. Phil, why such a short-lived trial?
Well, Steve, today was supposed to be the first day of Andrew Dawson's trial. The 48-year-old had initially denied 2 counts of murder. Instead, he wanted to plead guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. But shortly after lunch, he had a sudden and dramatic change of heart and changed his plea to guilty of murder on both counts. For police, it was vindication that Dawson had planned the killings of 2 innocent victims. Dawn on the 30th of July 2010. 2 policemen approach 49-year-old Andrew Dawson, who's sleeping rough in the harbour area at Whitehaven in Cumbria. As the officers move to arrest him, Dawson suddenly makes a break for it and dashes into the sea. Realising there's no escape, he comes back ashore, where he's shot twice with a taser gun before being subdued. Prior to his capture, Dawson had spent 5 days on the run, after becoming the prime suspect in a double murder. The previous Sunday, detectives had gone to the flat of John Matthews on Waterford Drive in Derby after he'd been reported missing. Inside, they found the 66-year-old's decomposing body in a bath full of water and bleach. It's thought he'd been there for 2 weeks. He'd also been stabbed 18 times to the head, neck and chest. 5 days later, in the same block of flats, officers discovered the body of Paul Hancock. He too had been stabbed and dumped in a bath. He too had suffered multiple. As forensic teams scoured the flats for evidence, they found several synthetic pink roses on the pillows and bedside tables of the victims. 3 weeks earlier, Dawson had moved into the same block of flats. Officers searched his property. There were signs he tried to conceal evidence of his crimes. Yellow waterproof trousers were found in a bath. Bits of a rubber glove were found in the lounge. But it was a notebook which provided the most chilling clues as to what he'd done. Initially, the pad appeared blank. But using an electromagnetic machine and fingerprint powder, officers from Derbyshire Police's Forensic Sciences Department discovered the imprint of a confessional letter on the pages underneath. Addressed to the head of homicide, it read, "I want to confess to a murder. I stabbed a man to death. A man lies in a bath of water. 2 major wounds to his left side. This is no hoax. If you don't find him in a week, I will give you his address. The pink rose was nice touch. Yours, the Angel of Mercy." In the days leading up to his arrest, detectives had several sightings of Dawson moving around the country. CCTV cameras captured him travelling by train from Derby to Sheffield before visiting members of his family at Ormskirk in Lancashire. Later in Preston, he was spotted shopping for what police say was a basic survival kit. Upon his capture, Dawson was carrying a rucksack. Inside were matches, a fishing line, cigarettes and 8 knives. Officers also found a pair of jeans with John Matthews' blood on them. Dawson's arrest in Cumbria came only weeks after local taxi driver Derek Bird had gone on a shooting rampage in the area, killing 12 people before turning the gun on himself. Derbyshire Police have since speculated Dawson might also have been planning to go out in a blaze of glory. It's not the first time Andrew Dawson has committed murder. In August of 1981, he stabbed 91-year-old shopkeeper Henry Walsh to death in Ormskirk after Mr. Walsh caught him stealing money. The following year, Dawson was convicted of murder and jailed for life. During his police custody interview, Dawson refused to cooperate, turning his back on the questioning officers. But today, a court decided that the self-styled Angel of Mercy should be shown none himself. And that lack of mercy was reflected in the comments of the judge, Mrs. Justice Dobbs, who told Dawson, "It's quite clear from what we've heard that the killings were deliberately premeditated and planned." She sentenced him to life imprisonment. And afterwards, police gave their reaction to the verdict.
Our thoughts and sympathies are with the victims' families at this time. I welcome the verdict and I'm satisfied that Andrew Dawson will never be released. This was a complex investigation and provided many challenges to the police. But I feel satisfied that Andrew Dawson was arrested as quickly as possible after committing these horrific crimes.
But this case does raise some difficult questions for the authorities. Dawson had already been jailed once for committing a murder in Lancashire in 1981. He was released from that sentence in 1999 after serving 17 years behind bars. Now, while on life licence, it's emerged that he was recalled to custody 3 times on one of those occasions for possession of an offensive weapon. Well, today, Derby Probation Service, who were responsible for monitoring Mr Dawson while he was out in the community, said they were satisfied with their management of the case.
Procedures were followed, things were done properly. You cannot eliminate risk, and if someone like this is determined to go on and kill, apparently without motivation, then there's very little that we can do to prevent it.
But issues remain. Had Andrew Dawson been locked up permanently, he would not have been free to kill John Matthews and Paul Hancock. We contacted the parole board, who last sanctioned the release of Mr Dawson in 2008. They sent us a statement in which they said, "We've reviewed the case and have identified a number of learning points which are being taken forward," adding that decisions like these were a judgment call. Well, there was at least one positive bit of news for today. Andrew Dawson's life sentence is a whole of life term, which means that he really now will spend the rest of his life behind bars.
Phil Brewster, thank you very much.
Thanks. 2 at 5 tonight, Cape Coral police get a state-of-the-art crime-fighting tool. This new computer software will help them fight crime faster. Nick Spinetto shows us how.
Fighting crime is hard, but Cape Coral police are taking steps to make it easier.
We're the only ones in the West Coast that basically have this kind of technology.
Larry Stringham is a forensic supervisor with KPD. Using grant money, the department was able to buy this new computer software. It's a database of shoe prints, 25,000 different shoe soles, patterns, and brands.
This one here? Yeah. That's a globe.
Like a fingerprint, a shoe print can be distinctive.
Over a period of time, those shoes become unique to you.
So if investigators find a footprint at a crime scene, it can be useful. But unlike television shows, they couldn't get the results as quick, at least until now.
All this now is going to be searchable immediately instead of having to put this off and send it off to another lab.
With this new computer software and a few clicks of a mouse, Cape Police can now get their information almost instantaneously.
It takes anywhere from about 20 minutes to 2 hours to make an identification on its classification.
Prior to this software, Cape PD would have to take photographs or a cast of a shoe print, then send it to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement lab in Tampa, and that could take months.
Usually they're about a 2.5 to 3 month delay in doing it because they're doing other work as well.
This slowed down investigations and could potentially hurt a case. With this new software, Cape Police are taking giant steps in solving crime in the city.
The faster that we get the turnaround, the greater amount of arrests.
In Cape Coral, Nick Spinetto, Wink News.
The top tonight at 6, a serial burglar is off the streets. Cape Coral police say the suspect is responsible for a string of business and home burglaries.
Police were able to catch the suspect with new footprint software. We first told you about that technology last week. Now, days later, it's already catching crooks. Nick Spinetto is live at Cape Police headquarters with this Wink News exclusive, new at 6.
Well, the suspect in these burglaries is 30-year-old Scott Krupp. Police say Krupp stole hundreds of dollars worth of stuff from homes and businesses in Cape Coral. Ultimately, though, it was Krupp's own footprint that led police right to his front door. Wink News is getting exclusive access to crime scene photos.
It matches the tread at his residence and also at the burglary scene.
This small, barely there footprint belongs to the criminal.
That's a globe.
Taking steps to crack down on crime, Cape Police used this new footprint software to find out what type of shoe the print is from. Eventually, that led them to Scott Krupp.
He ran from the police and jumped in a canal where one of his shoes sank to the bottom.
A dive team recovered Scott Krupp's shoe. Krupp is believed to be responsible for breaking into several Cape Coral homes and a business over the course of several weeks.
The suspect cut himself on the window and left some blood, some DNA evidence behind.
Using his DNA and his shoe print, police narrowed in on Krupp.
It's very important, and it's a pivotal piece.
Here's why. Cape Police got this new shoe print technology last week. It's a database of more than 25,000 different shoes, brands, and patterns. At a crime scene, police can take a picture of it, scan it into the system, and within minutes they know which type of shoe they have. Before, they used to have to send a photo of the shoe print to a crime lab in Tampa, and that could take months. With this new technology, once police have a suspect, they can check and see if his shoe print matches. If it does, it helps them take another criminal off the street.
The totality of the evidence and the circumstances really tightens the case. We're a lot better with it than we would have been without it.
Now, Cape Coral police were able to purchase this software with grant money. Meanwhile, Scott Krupp is facing a series of burglary charges tonight. We're live here in Cape Coral. Nick Spinetto, Wink News.
This is a brief demonstration of the FFTA GRIM 3. This demonstration will include sample preparation, measuring refractive indices of recovered fragments of glass from suspects and from controlled fragments of glass from a known source. Finally, the results will be compared to determine if the recovered fragments may have come from the controlled source. The FFTA GRIM 3 uses the oil immersion method for measuring refractive index. This means we must immerse our glass fragments in an oil with a known refractive index range. We start by taking a glass slide and placing a drop of oil onto the slide. Following this, I take a fragment of glass and place it into the slide. The GRIM 3 will measure fragments down to 50 microns in size, so I only need a very tiny fragment of glass. Just a little bit more. There is a good chance that the glass I've just put into the slide is too big. So to make it smaller, I will crush it with using the reverse end of my forceps. When crushing the glass, I can hear the glass being crushed with the end of the forceps. Following that, I now add one more drop of oil to the slide over the same area to ensure that the glass is immersed in the oil. Next, I place one cover slip over the area of the mounted glass, ensuring it is clean before I place it over my sample. Finally, I label the slide appropriately so that I will remember at a later stage what the slide is. Here is the finished slide. The microscope of the FFTA is now configured for use with the GRIM 3. We are using a phase contrast telescope objective in combination with the phase contrast ring of the condenser unit to ensure we get maximum contrast of our glass fragments. Finally, I also have a filter over my light source so that we only project a single wavelength of light. I now place my sample slide that I just made, named B3, into my hot stage ready for measurement. The exact position is then corrected using the XY stage, measuring the fragments on the GRIM3. I start the glass software so that I can start a new case. I give the case a name and I enter details about the case. I am the OIC, so I enter my name or select my name from the list, and I tell the software that this is a new case. I now have three options. I can measure a recovered fragment, a control fragment, or a standard sample. The recovered item or fragment is a fragment of glass that has been collected from a suspect or victim. A control item is an item of a known source from a crime scene, and the standard sample is a calibration glass standard which we use to confirm that the GRIM is working properly. Typically, you would measure the standard sample at the beginning of your case, but today we will just go straight into measuring a recovered sample. So I select the measurement box of the same colour to measure my recovered item. I provide the sample name, and I fill in details about this particular fragment. Any field in bold requires me to enter or to select an option. Once I am happy with the amount of information I've supplied, I can just click Measure GRIM. The temperature of the hot stage is set, ready to start taking a measurement. Fragments of glass are located and measurement boxes are placed on the correct area of the fragments, ready to take a measurement. Once this has been completed, the user can select Auto so that the measurement is started. We take a cooling measurement and a heating measurement to account for any temperature lag between the oil and the glass, and then we take the average of these two readings to give us our final refractive index measurement. Following completion of the measurement, the user must select to accept the results and save the record, which takes them back to the case management screen. Then they select OK if there are no issues and tell the GRIM that it is all done. They may then take a measurement of more recovered fragments or a control item from the crime scene in the same way. Following this, we just click Measure GRIM again once we've entered mandatory fields. And select Measure GRIM. From here, the measurement process is exactly the same, with a new microscope slide being inserted into the GRIM. We've now finished taking our measurement of our control fragment, so again we accept the result and save record. Again, we are happy with these results, so we say OK and all done. I can now display the results of my recovered fragment from my suspect and my control fragment from my crime scene. If we look at the results numerically, we can see that we have one answer which is 1.52256 as a refractive index for my recovered sample, and I have a refractive index of 1.51874 as my average refractive index of my control items. We typically say if we see a difference of 10 in the 5th decimal, or arguably 1 in the 4th decimal, it would be enough to suggest that these two fragments of glass have come from different sources. In this case, the difference is in the 2nd decimal, so we are absolutely certain at this point the fragments are different. To aid our interpretation, we can also show the results graphically. Here we have two pyramids of results, one of our recovered sample and one of our control sample. The black squares represent each individual reading. The thin line at the top is the mean average results of those samples. The first level of the pyramid is 1 standard deviation. The second level is 2 standard deviations, and the bottom level is 3 standard deviations. If there is no overlap between the third levels of your pyramids, we would say that, that means there is no way or no possibility that this glass could have come from this control item, again confirming our result. 3 standard deviations is also the equivalent of 99.7% certainty.